Last week we did a polymod to this ASRock 775 Dual VSTA board. We also flashed the BIOS and totally bricked it. So in today's video we are going to unbrick it and continue the build of a tweener. I'll talk some more about the project later in the video and the choice of this oddball of a motherboard. But first we need to fix it. Luckily I ordered some sockets and an adapter for the IBM M51 project just a few weeks ago. And that's the same adapter we need for this board. I actually have the proper tool to pull that chip out, but I've had a few accidents using it. So I actually prefer to use a small screwdriver and just gently pull that chip out. It's just less risky than using the tool. The adapter is for the TL866 programmer, but it should work in most programmers. Pin 1 is marked for correct installation, and the socket has a notch here, so it shouldn't be possible to install the chip incorrectly. I removed the sticker here, and it revealed the WinBond chip. Okay, I think I found the chip in the XG Pro, so let's connect that programmer. Let's try to do a read. Well, it's actually telling me which adapter to use. And it's a PLC C32, of course. Now, let's see if this works. Reading the flash. Read finished. Okay, so the adapter is working. And ROM seems to have some data on it too. I'll go ahead and save a copy. And next I'll go ahead and download the hacked BIOS from the RetroWeb. And it's 3.19 Rev A. So the file we read is 512K, so that is correct. Now let's see if we can open the modified BIOS here. This file too is 512K, so all is looking good so far. Now let's see if it will open it. Yeah, this is looking good. In that case, let's just program it. And it's erasing the chip. Now it's flashing it. Verifying flash. Programming succeeded. Okay, so we seem to be all good. So let's go back and verify it, just to make sure. So now it compares the content of the chip with the file we used to flash it. Verify results successful. Okay, so this chip now contains the new hacked BIOS. The socket is really deep, so I'm actually going to use the proper tool, but not as intended. I'm just going to use the hooks at the end to pry that chip out. Okay, BIOS chip back on the board. I guess it's time for a test. Okay, I connected the bare minimum to the motherboard. Now let's see if it works. Fingers crossed. The fan spun up. Oh, and we've got something on the screen. MAC address are invalid in both CMOS and flash. Okay, so something is still wrong here, but it's not a brick anymore. So let's connect the keyboard. The TL866 has come in really handy in many projects. That thing has paid for itself many times over. Okay, let's try F1. Okay, and we can also see that we have the modded BIOS installed. So let's jump into setup and load optimal defaults. Save and exit. The E8600 is recognized and running at 2.66 GHz. But that MAC address error is really weird. Never had this one before. Let's see if it will boot from the hard drive next. Well, this MAC address error actually indicates that something may have gone wrong during that flash. So I guess we should try to fix it first, but let's see if we can boot from the hard drive. And apparently I need to activate Windows, but I'm not going to use Windows XP on this machine. So I'm gonna skip it for now. But the important thing here is that the machine seems to be working fine. So reflashing that chip was at least partially successful. Okay, in that case I think the next thing we should try is the flash utility for DOS. I actually tried this software in the video where we bricked this board. But I made a mistake because it came without any instructions. So the proper way to do this is to type ASR flash and the file name of the BIOS we want to flash. And this, by the way, is that hacked BIOS that we have used to flash that EEPROM. Now let's see if this works. It reads from the diskette. Please wait for loading BIOS ROM. Okay, we didn't get this far in the previous attempts, so this is a good sign. Thanks to the people who left the comments that this is the proper way to use the software. So this is AMI Flash Utility version 8 point something. And it looks like it's already writing Flash ROM update complete pass. Man, ASRock had some rude software. But hey, I'm not gonna complain because it did work after all. So let's reboot the system and see if that MAC address issue went away. No, it didn't. Oh crap. Well, in that case, I'm going to ignore that error for now. So I have set the time and date now to see if everything is working. And our next issue is the RAM. So we've got 2 gigs of DDR2 RAM installed now. And when we try to install the second SIM, the system wouldn't post. But with this hacked BIOS, I think it should work. Now let's add a second 2 gig stick and boot the machine. Okay, it posts. So that's already an improvement. Dual channel memory mode, 3.5 gig, awesome. So this is actually an essential upgrade to this project. As I mentioned earlier, this is a tweener build. It's basically the fastest possible machine that I can build using ATX parts, and that will also take 3 floppy drives. So I'm gonna use modern OS on this machine, and 3.5 gigs is way better than 2 gigs on Windows 10. So this upgrade is an absolute must for this project. So that is a milestone. The board is unbricked, and we've got enough RAM to run Windows 10. And unfortunately, very annoying error. Okay, the next thing to sort out is the main drive. In the previous attempts, I tried with this Intel SSD, but it was super glitchy, so I ended up using a mechanical drive for now. But we're going for the fastest possible speed here. So I'm gonna try this drive next. Okay, I've got Windows 10 on a USB stick. Let's see if we can install it on that SSD. This error is gonna drive me nuts, so we need to find a fix for it. Okay, so this drive wasn't even recognized by the system, and this Intel drive here was a bit glitchy. But then I tried the Samsung drive, and now we're successfully running Windows on the machine. So it seems to be a bit picky with SSD drives. So I guess the next thing to try is to see if we can get rid of this MAC address error. It's really annoying because I have to press F1 every time I want to boot the machine. I tried to disable the onboard network card, but that wouldn't help. I also tried to set the MAC address in Windows, but that didn't help either. But then I found a thread on Vogons with someone else having the same issue with a very similar board. And there was a software provided. So I've made a bootable diskette with that software on. Let's see if it works on this board too. So I'm going to change first boot device to floppy, save and exit. Okay, and we are now in pure DOS. And according to the instructions, we need to type MAC, and then C, and then the MAC address. The MAC address on these boards can be found on a sticker on the parallel port. Okay, let's try to hit enter and see what happens. Write MAC to GPNV. Write MAC function call OK. Alright, I think this was successful. Let's reboot and see if it works. Oh, and it fixed it. Awesome. Vogons to the rescue. Once again. I probably left something on the screen, so you can find that thread if you need this tool. And the network seems to have woken up too. It obviously didn't work previously. Now let's start that awful edge and see if we have access to the internet. The clock is behind. I'm not going to install a different browser because I'm not going to use this installation. I haven't quite decided yet what OS to run. So this is just for testing. Can't establish private connection because time and date is incorrect. That's annoying. I guess I'll go ahead and fix it. Okay, so the next thing to do is to go to Device Manager and uninstall the drivers for the random graphics card I grabbed on the bench for this test. And then turn the machine off. So my initial plan was to use the GTX 480 for this project, because apparently someone made this work on this board. But then someone left a comment in a previous video and told me that he managed to make a GTX 580 run on this board, so I went through my stash and look what I found. Gainward GTX 580 This card is untested, but it looks really clean. So I guess we should try it. The only downside to using these large cards for this project is that it's really tricky to reach the ID ports here. This is going to be my main lab machine. But there is room enough to install that cable, and I guess I'll just leave it in. Otherwise I'm going to have to remove the graphics card every time I need to connect an ID drive. Okay, here goes. Well, the fan spun up in the graphics card, and it's really silent. I don't think this card has seen much use, being so clean. And if I'm not mistaken, those are poly caps, so probably no issues with caps either. Okay, and it boots to Windows. That's a good start. And it seems to be installing the graphics card in the background. Let's go to Device Manager and check. Well, it's installed as a basic display adapter. And again, I'm not going to keep this installation. So I'm doing as little as possible just to test everything. And then unfortunately the system crashed. I'm just getting a black screen. I guess I'll force it to reboot. So this happened while I was running the updates. And the board still posts. So that was probably a glitch in Windows. Best driver for NVIDIA GTX 580. The recommended driver for NVIDIA GeForce GTX 580 is 391.35. This driver is the last game-ready driver to officially support the GTX 580. Okay, that's what we'll use, I guess. Okay, I'll install the drivers and skip ahead here. An error has occurred in the script on this page. Do you want to continue running scripts on this page? Well, that sucks. So is this a crappy Edge thing? Well, I ended up installing all the updates anyways, because I figured I'll probably use this installation at least for a few days. And when all the tests are done, I'll probably go with Windows LTSC, but that's a later decision. Okay, so the graphics card installed, but unfortunately there is an issue here. Apparently this board has an issue installing graphics card in the PCI Express slots. And there is a fix for it, but I'm not sure this is what we're seeing, because with the information I could find online, it doesn't really tell what the issue is. So let's try that fix next and see if we can solve this. So I'm going to run the command prompt and then run bcd edit /set PCI Express and then force disable. Let's give this a try. The operation completed successfully. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall that graphics card off camera. Let's see if this fixes the issue. Okay, no, that actually didn't work. Windows has stopped this device because it has reported problems. In that case, let's reboot and jump into BIOS. And then we're going to change this setting here. PCIe downstream pipeline from auto to disabled. And this setting here, PCIe VC1 request queue. We're going to disable it too, because some people seem to have had issues with this. Let's save and exit. Now let's check again. And the issue is gone. Awesome, that totally fixed it. So this board has a few quirks, but luckily there is quite a lot of information about this board online. Okay, great, so we have a fully working Windows now with all the drivers. Okay, the next thing is the floppy drives. And being a tweener, it needs to have as many drives as possible. I have a lot of older PCs, so I constantly make 360K floppies, 1.2 meg floppies, and regular diskettes of course. So we need at least 2 drives. We're actually going to try to see if we can make this work with 3 drives. Let's start with this 1.2 meg drive. So normally boards from this era only have support for 1 floppy drive. And that is one of the interesting quirks with this board. It has a floppy controller that supports 2 drives. Now let's see if that drive was found by the system. And I think it is. Floppy disk drive A. I'll insert the floppy. We'll try to read it. Yeah, it seems to be working. I'll copy a small file to it just to make sure it works. Yeah, totally does. Now let's add a 360K drive. So this is the drive we repaired just a couple of weeks ago. And it turned out to have one bad tantalum. Let's boot the machine and see if it's recognized. So let's go to floppy configuration. So drive A is a 1.2 meg drive. And drive B is a 360K drive. Let's save and exit. Okay, we've got a disk boot failure, so it tried to boot from that drive. That is a good sign. Your PC device needs to be repaired. What's up with this? Let's reboot and see if it will go away. Oh no! Windows 10 crashed. Required device isn't connected and can't be accessed. Oh crap. Now, was this caused by that drive? Or is this just a coincidence? I wonder if this floppy had a boot sector virus. That is not unlikely. I guess we will be able to find out once in Windows. But first I need to repair this Windows installation before we can continue. So if you ever wondered why it takes so long to make a video like this, now you know. Stuff like this just keeps happening. Okay, let's try boot rec. Fix MBR. Operation completed successfully. Okay, let's try to boot Windows again. No, that didn't fix it. Oh crap. I guess I'll do a full restore. And sure enough, that old floppy had a virus on it, nasty enough to bring Windows 10 down. So Windows 10 is pretty good at finding old viruses, but unfortunately it doesn't tell you what it is. It just gives you a pop-up down here in the corner, telling you have a virus, and then it just renders that floppy unusable. And it was obviously boot sector virus, since it crashed the system while trying to boot from that floppy. Okay, and here is the protection history. Threat blocked, severe, and it's that stupid anti-exe. I've had this damn thing before. So it's still floating around among my floppies. So Defender has cleaned that floppy, but unfortunately it also renders the floppy unusable. And this is of course a big benefit of using a modern OS for file transferring to floppies. Because if the floppy has a virus, it will let you know. So this is actually a big bonus. I have reinstalled Windows, so we can now check if those drives are working. So here's the 1.2 meg drive, and it's obviously working. And here's our 360K drive. It's probably gonna give us an error, because Defender has rendered it unusable. Yes, it did. Not accessible. So what we need to do now is to format that floppy. Okay, let's try with a different floppy. Yeah, totally working. Oh crap. This one too was infected. Oh damn it. I need to go through all my floppies. I think I've had this virus since the 90s. I found it a few years ago on a floppy that I hadn't used since the 90s. So I've probably had this damn virus since the 90s, floating around on all my floppies and hard drives. There is a small app in Norton Antivirus that you can use to remove it without destroying the content on the floppy. So I'll probably install it on this machine and start going through all my disks. And now to something a bit more experimental. I have never tried this before and I couldn't find anyone online who had either. So we're just gonna have to try and see if we can make this work and add a third drive. So first we're going to need an internal USB connector. So I'll start by installing this NEC-based USB card. Okay, USB card installed and it seems to be working. I already have one of these in the VP6 project, and these NEC cards seems to be really good. Next we're going to install this kit that I found on AliExpress. So this thing basically converts regular diskette drive to USB. I have seen people use these adapters online, but never in combination with two other drives. Unfortunately, there were no instructions included, and I couldn't find any information online. But I think this is how it should be connected. So it's obviously connected to USB, and then I presume that the controller is providing power to the diskette drive. I guess we'll have to test, see if this works. Let's boot the board up. The LED lit up and then turned off. So that looks like normal behavior. Okay, we're in Windows. Okay, we actually do have a third drive here now. I'll insert a disk and double click the drive. It seeks. Haha, and it works. Awesome. So you can actually add a third drive with USB, but I couldn't find any information online. Anyone trying this hack? This is how to add 3 drives to one modern machine. Well, quote unquote modern. Awesome! That is a big win and a milestone for this project. This machine is going to be a huge time saver for me. I make different types of floppies pretty much every week. And as it is now, I have to pull different machines out to write those floppies. And now I have everything in the same machine. And also access to the web, so I can quickly download image files. This is awesome! But I haven't decided yet if I should spend the money on the fastest possible CPU for this machine, which is probably the QX9650, because I'm not sure I'm going to keep this board in this project. But I have been playing around in BIOS, and it seems to be running happily at 2.95 MHz with the E8600 with 6 megs of level 2 cache. So this is probably a pretty good budget option. I'm not going to use this machine for gaming. This is going to be my main lab machine, so this is a tool. And if it works well, I will upgrade the CPU. But I also have another board to try, so this is going to have to be a later decision. Well, a project like this needs as many bays as possible, obviously. Unfortunately, bays are out of fashion. So the best I could do was a Fractal Design Define XLR2. I've been using its predecessor for more than a decade. They are a bit pricey, but you really get what you pay for with these. Behind the front door, this case have 4 drive bays. They also have a foam to keep it quiet, even in a door. And behind this door we have room for 2 140mm fans, and 1 fan included. Everything with these cases just feels high quality. It's a really well built case. It is a very large case though. So if you get one of these, make sure you have the space for it. There's also a grill for a fan on the side panel here. And the back of the side panel also has sound deadening foam. Black cases are a bit difficult to record on camera, because you basically lose all the details. But in here we have the 4 drive bays up here. And then it has a shitload of hard drive bays here. There is 1 more 140mm fan included down here. And a third fan at the back here. And at the top here it has room for 2 more 140mm fans. They are covered with foam too, that can be removed. And the door at the back here is covered with foam too. So this should be a really silent case. This is going to be an overkill. But I managed to find a whole stack of industrial Noctua fans. So I'm going to use them for this project. I obviously don't need industrial fans for this project, but I got them for cheap, so why not? Okay, I installed 2 fans in the front panel and 1 at the bottom here, blowing air into the case. And 2 fans at the top here and 1 at the back, blowing air out of the case. I'm gonna skip the fan on the side panel. It should be more than sufficient. To keep that E8600 cool, I'm gonna use this vintage Zalman Ultra Quiet CNPS 8700 NT. I found this on eBay as new old stock. I did a quick check and it looks to be complete. Not the biggest cooler I have, but it's a decent chunk of copper. And if it runs too hot, I can always replace it with something larger. But it definitely has a nice vintage look to it, so it should be a really good fit for this board. Okay, the cooler and the included standoffs are all installed, so we can install the motherboard next. This power supply doesn't feel right in this project. I'm sure it's powerful enough, but it just doesn't feel right, so I'll start looking for something better. This case only has 5¼ drive bays, so I picked up this adapter from Amazon. I've been using these for many projects, and they are good enough and reasonably priced. Okay, time to install the drives. And even these covers are really well designed. This case is almost perfect. Just wish it had a few more drive bays. It would have been nice to have a zip drive and a compact flash reader installed in the front panel too. So at the top I'm going to install the 3.5-inch drive and then the 1.2 meg drive in the second bay, 360K drive in the third bay, and the CD-ROM drive in the last bay. This 360K drive, by the way, is from a PC Junior, so that's probably the oldest part in this build. Oh crap, the lever for the 1.2 meg drive is too large, so I can't close the door proper. But I probably have a different drive with a smaller lever, so I'll just replace it later. And the PC Junior drive here needs extra long screws. I have some somewhere, but it's gonna take a while to find them, so that is gonna have to be for later too. Stuff like this is really hard to foresee in a Franken build like this. To connect all those fans, I bought this kit here from Nokia. And with that kit I can connect all 6 fans to the fan controller in the front panel. The fan controller is then powered by a regular Molex. I'll do all the cable management later, after I have done all the tests. And unfortunately, one more minor issue here. The fan controller isn't powerful enough to run all 6 fans at 5 volts. So I'm gonna have to add a second fan controller. But that's a minor issue. I kind of expect stuff like this to happen in a build. Especially a weird project like this. This is a really good looking case. I haven't decided on that motherboard for this project yet, but I'm definitely keeping this case. And that brings us to this mystery board, because next we're going to bend the rules slightly and see if we can go even faster. I wasn't planning on doing any benchmarks, since I don't have the perfect CPU for this board. But if you want me to run any benchmarks, then just let me know, and I'll include it in the follow-up video. And that's all I had for you guys today, and I'll see you again next week.